Well, now I have an empty shelf and a mess. So today I'm going to be curating this mess of a bookshelf into a personal library. Now, I have been collecting books for pretty much since I graduated high school, and that was in 2017. So I've had quite a few books accumulate on my shelves. I have done a few donations in the past to clean this up, but as of right now, I think it is at the most messy and disorganized that it has ever been, and I would like to change that. So my goal for today is I want to take this collection and archive of all sorts of different books from various genres and different topics of interest and curate it into a personal library that reflects my current worldview and the goals that I am currently working towards. I'm going to be ruthless with this collection here and pare it down to the essentials so that when I go to this shelf, it's not this overwhelming barrage of options that make it so that my mind just doesn't even want to bother with any of these books, but instead it is a very concise and clear distillation of the current ideas and concepts that I'm working through, as well as the different interests that I have. The first category in curating this personal library is religion. And just for context, I have been into spirituality and religion for several years, actually almost a decade. I got into New Age spirituality when I got into veganism shortly after I graduated high school in 2017. And then during COVID, that kind of crumbled under its own weight, and there was a lot of philosophical inconsistencies and things that just did not properly address the realities of just suffering and life and being human. And so I decided to start dabbling and deepening my understanding of Christianity. And so I got into Eastern Orthodox Christianity specifically in the fall of 2021. I was really deep into that for several months. I was going every single day, every Sunday. And it was a very enriching practice for me at the time. And it gave me that sense of stability that I was looking for. But ultimately, it was not for me. And I did go back and forth through different periods similar to that, where I was going regularly, attending church services. I even became a catechumen, although I only ever went to one catechumen class. It was a bit much to have to go Saturday and Sunday because the church was about 45 minutes away. And now in 2025, the last time that I was at church was from the fall of 2024, when one of my acquaintances from high school was hit and killed by a vehicle, into the spring of this year. So another few month period where I was going regularly. And so, with that being said, what are the books that I'm going to keep from this pile here? Well, as you can see here, I have multiple translations of the Bible, and if I had a much larger library and I had the time to actually do a reading of these various books and compare and contrast the translations, then that would make a lot of sense. But I don't. I'm fairly pressed for time, and as of yet, I still haven't read through the entire Bible, which I know a lot of Christians haven't even done that, but it's something that I would like to do just because from a mythological and archetypal perspective, there's a lot of, wisdom to be found in the Bible if you're going to look at it in various metaphorical and metaphysical lenses rather than just purely a literal interpretation, which that's one of the reasons why I had to step away from the Orthodox Church and really organized Christianity at all, because pretty much all of them, especially with Eastern Orthodoxy, you have to literally believe a lot of various tenets. It can't just be this pretty metaphor. You have to literally believe that the Trinity is the essentially the metaphysics of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You have to literally believe that Jesus was born of a virgin. You have to literally believe that he rose from the dead 3 days after the crucifixion, and all of that. And you have to literally believe in heaven and hell. A lot of literal beliefs that I just could not get behind. And so, with that being said, I'm going to be keeping just the King James Bible version, because some of the Orthodox study Bibles, very helpful if you're really trying to get into the nuts and bolts, the meat and potatoes of all the intricacies of the Bible and the history behind it. But as far as just someone like myself with no deep background, because I was not raised religious, I just need to simply get through the Bible to begin with. That's all that I need to do. I don't need to get into all of the nitty-gritty details. So, all of these different study Bibles, I think this is a Catholic Bible. This one's actually a Catholic as well. So, 2 Orthodox study Bibles, 2 Catholic Bibles, those go over here. And I'm going to be donating those or returning them to where they're from. This is just a little pocket edition of the King James New Testament, so I'll be keeping that. And then this is the Orthodox Christian prayer book, and this is my Imitation of Christ. Obviously, these are like little pocket prayer books. This one's Catholic, this one's Orthodox. And the problem that I have with these is that they both just reinforce the victim and servant complex that you have, where you are essentially bowing down before something that is way, way bigger than you, and not in like a reverent way, but almost in like a groveling and pathetic and kind of sad way, where you're constantly referring to yourself as this poor, worthless sinner and all of that. And as someone with a trauma background, with neglect and abuse and a lot of people-pleasing tendencies that I've been trying to work out of, this is very unhelpful for me, because that just reinforces a lot of those tendencies that I've used to externalize my identity and my authority onto others. So those go in the donation. This one here, 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 and here. These are all various supplementary books to the Orthodox Christian faith. This one here was really insightful, and it's just going into the intricacies of the actual worldview that you're expected to have. So this is a very helpful book for catechumens and people that are going through the process of initiating into the church, because with Eastern Orthodoxy, it's the denomination with the highest amount of PhDs, more than any other denomination out of all 40,000 denominations in the world. And so they take it very seriously, and you can't just say, oh, I'd like to be baptized. It's like, whoa, wait a second, you got to do the catechumen class for a while. So they take it quite seriously. This was really insightful. This is what helped me understand the literal aspects of a lot of their beliefs. But there are also some metaphorical and other ways that they interpret. There's multiple layers of interpretation. They don't get rid of the literal interpretation. So some churches, the Bible thumpers that we often refer to here in the U.S., they often have a very, very literal interpretation, and that's about it. They don't have any of the metaphorical other layers of interpretation. Orthodox has a lot, including literal. So it's been fascinating, but it's time for me to move on. So these books I'm just going to be returning to their owners. I think some of them are from the church, and then others came from my friends. And then this one, C.S. Lewis, Surprised by Joy. I haven't read it yet, but it is about his conversion to Christianity. And one of the books that I have read in the past, which was, I think, Mere Christianity, which is explaining what it is about Christianity that he believed in. I thought it was fascinating, even though I disagreed with a lot of it. It just kind of shows you the inner workings of Christian thought. And so that's a book that I will be keeping. This one, I really like it, The Cloud of Unknowing. And this one is essentially medieval Christian mysticism. And so it actually seems a lot more similar to like Zen and Taoism, but with a Christian twist on it. And I just find that very beautiful because it gets to what I think the core and the heart of Christianity is, beyond all of the dualistic, arbitrary rule following and things like that. This one here is a collection of hymns and incantations and prayers from the Scottish Highlands from the last century. And I haven't gone through all of it yet, and so it's something that I would like to keep because it was gifted to me by a friend, or rather lent to me, so I will have to return it to him at some point. But considering my personal ancestry and heritage, being largely English and Scottish, and a little bit of Irish in there, as well as other European nations, but mostly that, this is just a good way for me to reconnect with some of my ancestors. However, that isn't in a slightly roundabout way, because if these are from the last century, most of my ancestors have been in the United States since the 1700s. So actually, these folks are not my ancestors. They're more like cousins, but that's neither here nor there. All right, last book in the religion category is the Quran. And I have not read this yet, but for comparative religion purposes, I'm going to be keeping it. And also, it was gifted to me by my mom, who was Muslim for a while, almost 15 years, because my stepdad was from Syria. So that concludes the religion aspect. Hey, Butters. You want to review books with me? Okay, so this next pile of books is spirituality and esotericism or occultism. It's all under kind of the same umbrella, in my personal opinion. And so there's going to be some books on like tarot and psychedelics and things like that in here. A lot of meditation, a lot of astral projection, even some alchemy. What else? I think there's a whole lot of books on yoga and various Eastern traditions like Hinduism, Buddhism. Oh, what? What? Oh, come on. What? You want me to keep petting him? So, that's a lot of the books here. And so in the efforts of curating this library, I'm really trying to find books that actually are valuable beyond just the feel-good, airy-fairy, sunshine and rainbows philosophy of the New Age that is so common in pop spirituality, as well as beyond just simply the life-denying and life-transcending views of a lot of these Buddhist and Hindu Eastern traditions. I'm trying to find books here that are still relevant when you're actually wrestling with and grappling with the realities of just being human and not trying to just transcend it and negate it all the time. So, to begin with, these are books on tarot, and I'm going to be keeping these just because I think that being able to use symbology and archetypes, sorry about my cat, being able to use symbology and archetypes to communicate with your unconscious and your soul is very relevant. I've been getting into Jung lately with dream interpretation, and tarot actually goes very well with being able to decipher and understand not just your dreams, but also just the symbology of all sorts of stories and myths, and even just like people. And so these tarot books going to be keeping. This one, these two actually, Black Elk Speaks and Wisdom Keepers, are just on Native American spirituality. And so I'm going to be keeping those because I have a lot of reverence for that particular way of life, as that is very much in the life-affirming worldview that I am more or less aspiring to now. And so very relevant, very helpful. The Bhagavad Gita, fantastic book. I'm going to be keeping that. Really just centers around a dilemma of conscience where the main character, Arjuna, is faced with the conundrum of having to deal with fighting his own blood relatives in a big war and having to reconcile that with his own morality. And it's a very relevant piece of ancient literature and myth that I think is a lot more helpful than, books like, let's see if I can find it, The Four Agreements. This is a very, very popular book, but in here, there's even, oh yeah, look, literally the first thing I put to, don't take anything personally. One of the things in here that he says is, like, if someone even tries to kill you, you're just supposed to, like, just, let it happen, and it's not about you, and all of these different things. And it essentially, it doesn't give you any real capacity to deal with life. There are a few tidbits in here that are helpful, but as with any book in spirituality, there's going to be some valuable insights mixed in. But if the majority of the book is just fluff, then there's really no point in keeping it. So this is going in the donation pile over here. Well, this is a lot of books. Well, I did say in the very beginning of this that I wanted to be as ruthless as possible with paring this down to just the bare essentials. So without overthinking it, I'm going to just rapid fire separate these into keep and donate. So donate, donate, donate. Okay, so the pile of books that we are keeping is starting to get a lot smaller, which is good. So this is the pile here. There's some more over here. And I'm just going to drag over some of the other books. This was what we had from the religion category. And if you look over here, this is all the stuff that we are going to be donating. And it's almost, this is bigger than this pile over here. So I'm pretty happy with that. Although we have quite a few more to go through. All right, so this is the conclusion of the process of purging my shelf. As you saw in the earlier clip, I ended up getting rid of about 80 books. I have a tote bag here full of them. And then I have another tote bag here. These are going to be going to somewhere to get donated. I'll figure that out at some point. This stack here are just some books that are my dad's that I just have to return to him. Those were sitting on my shelf for a little while. These two are from my friend, so I have to return those. These books are my mom's, along with, if you can see that right there, that pile, mostly dictionaries and some language books, also my mom's. But as you can see, the shelf itself is a lot more, I'd say that there's still a lot on there, but there's clearly room for more books to go in there. And this middle shelf here, well, rather the second one from the bottom, if you're not counting this one, that's my fiction shelf. So there's a lot of sci-fi and fantasy on there, as well as some myths. So that is also going to get pared down, because as I go through, some of those are not going to pass the keep test. There were a couple sci-fi books that I had finished in the past year that weren't really worth keeping. Down here is history and any type of politics. This middle shelf is all poetry. I have the entire collection of Shakespeare there. That's fun as well. Up top, I've got my religion and spirituality. Then below that, it is psychology and philosophy. And you may notice at the very top of the shelf, I still kept a few books on orthodoxy, because I do want to write a deep dive article, as well as make a video on deconstructing the Eastern Orthodox worldview, understanding what they actually believe and why I stepped away from it. So until I finish with that, those are going to stay up there. But I'd say it's been pretty successful getting rid of 80 books. One of the main takeaways that I have from this process is I was keeping a lot of books out of a sense of obligation and that I should keep them or I should read them. And it was kind of just this vague notion. It wasn't really coming from any actual desire to engage with the material. It's more about like, oh, you should just read perspectives that you disagree with. And at the end of the day, I'm someone who has struggled to articulate clearly what I personally believe, and I have spent a long time listening to all sorts of different perspectives on various issues. And that's great, but I have not spent enough time really honing in and deepening my own core perspective and my own personal voice on things. And so this coming year, 2026, I really want to continue paring this down and then adding other complementary authors where necessary. There are a few that I really want to get into. If I was to put some type of label, I really don't like those, but if I was to put a label around my emerging worldview, especially as it pertains to spirituality, I would probably call it ecological vitalism. And I know those are just buzzwords, and I'm still figuring out what those mean, but it has a lot to do with just recognizing our place in the cosmos and in nature, and the real impacts that humanity is having on the planet, as well as our interdependence. So it merges a lot of modern insights with indigenous wisdom, and the vitalism aspect has a lot to do with pursuing a life-affirming worldview. And what I mean by that is it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, say, pacifism or veganism, you might think that that's life-affirming in that you're trying to be peaceful or you're trying not to cause violence or harm. But I would say that that is life-negating in the sense, if you zoom out a bit, you're not affirming an individual life, you're affirming the reality of life as a whole. And when you look at life as a whole, there's a lot of suffering and there's a lot of competition, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of tragedy, and there's also a lot of beauty and growth and wonderful things that come as a result of that. So a life-affirming worldview is one that does not try to run away from all of the intricacies and the muddy, unfortunate details, but rather faces them and gives you the tools to be able to actually grapple with the human condition in its entirety. And it's not trying to sugarcoat anything. So that is the shelf, and that's my process behind purging all of these different books out of it. And that bottom, just this last remark, this bottom section I did not really touch at all, because that's all about permaculture and building, survival skills, a lot of architecture stuff. There's really no need for me to pare that down, as I'm still new to a lot of that, and I really need to just soak in as much information in that field as I can and apply it. It's not really as subjective as, a lot of these ideas up here, which are more, there's many ways to skin a cat when it comes to forming your worldview and your personal ethics and morality, but when it comes to growing vegetables, there are methods that work and methods that don't. So it's a matter of experimenting, figuring out what works, and then just getting rid of the stuff that doesn't. So that concludes this process. Hopefully that you have enjoyed this, and I think that, if anything, I would encourage you to take a look at whatever books you have in your life and ask yourself if they are adding to clarity in your life and giving you a sense of, fulfillment as well, or if they're causing confusion or tension, or if there's a sense of obligation that you're keeping books because you think that you need to in order to appear a certain way to other people, or even, as if you've identified with certain books, see if that's kind of causing a hang up for you. And yeah, that's all I've got.